All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heidi, please note that all board members are in attendance at this time. Board members, please note if you have a conflict of interest on any agenda or non-agenda items. Seeing none, I will seek a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion by Moulton.
Second.
Second by Iverson. Heidi will now present the financial report.
Thank you. Taxes in the amount of $8.4 million were received between the funds of general capital outlay and special education for the month of November. These are the final significant portion of the 2022 taxes payable in 2023. In capital outlay, expenditures included a down payment to electronics for the video board at the athletic complex in the amount of $162,000. A payment was also made towards debt service of the middle school in the amount of $311,775. This fund's ending cash position of $6.8 million is slightly above the prior year. Expenditures exceeded the revenue during the month with the fluctuating inventory and students working through established lunch account payments in the K-12 Nutrition Fund. We currently have just over $5,000 in negative lunch accounts and continue to work with families on the importance of the free and reduced lunch application. We have received just under $3,000 in total donations to assist in offsetting this amount. We will be applying donation assistance in the new year. Please note that student accounts are not eligible for donation assistance if they do not have a completed free and reduced application on file. Tuition fees in relation to the first semester continue to be received for the Lake Area Tech Fund. State revenue in the amount of $5.7 million is related to the first and second quarter state aid payments within the fund. The ending cash position reflects an increase over the previous year at month end. Activity in the bookstore, food service, and educare operations were moderate, and all the funds remain at a healthy level to support operations. Premium exceeded the administrative costs and claims during the month in the Employee Benefit Trust. We continue close monitoring of the claims to premium ratios as we evaluate future premium levels of the plan. This fund's ending cash position has declined from the previous year. As we route our way through the last quarter of the year, high-cost claims will meet individual stop-loss and reinsurance credits will offset the reportable high claims. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. All right, we'll move into student staff recognition.
Okay, thank you very much. We have several folks here tonight to be recognized, so I'm going to call you up in bunches and then we'll stop. So our board members will hand you a certificate and then we'll have you grouped. So if there's a picture that needs to be had, if you'd wait up here. So we're going to start with the Academic All-State Football Awards. Simon Hendricks. Cohen Crayons. Blake Winches. Carter Schmidt. Julio Estevez. Brianna Wietzema. Wait right here. This is our Academic All-State for football. Now we have our All-State Football Awards. Jubin Hudson. Jeremiah Schulte. Caden Beauchamp. Spencer Winches. Micah Hawk. Owen Sparts. And Austin Johnson. Okay, that's all state football. Next up, cross country. Academic All-State, Ben Peterson. All-State in Cross Country, Grace McElroy. Next up, Competitive Cheer Awards. First, we'll do the Academic All-State for Competitive Cheer. Brooklyn Dahl. Ava Mack. Caitlin Rudebush. Tessa Swiden. Mackenzie Lewis. Shane Gallardo. Jenna Dede. And Allison Paul. Academic All-State. Next up are All-State Award winners for Competitive Cheer. Brooklyn Dahl. Ava Mack. And Caitlin Rudebush. Congratulations. Next up is volleyball. Our academic All-Staters have not been notified yet, so we have one All-State Volleyball Award, and that is for Emery Thury. And finally, we have one staff recognition tonight. Our 2023 South Dakota TESOL Administrator of the Year is our Assistant Director of Special Services, Dr. Maria Nye. Come on up. And you have to say what the acronym stands for.
What it stands for?
It's for English as a second language, I know that.
Yeah, it's an international organization, and so it was the Dakota, so Administrator for North Dakota and South Dakota of the Year for teachers of English of students who speak other languages. So
Congratulations. Yeah. And congratulations to all of our award winners. Thank you for coming. Okay. Is there anyone here to speak on agenda or non-agenda items for
Point
Lake
of
Area
order.
Tech?
Need to, we have a motion standing.
Ah, yes. Oh, where were you on that one, Heidi? No,
We have to vote.
I take
All in
responsibility.
favor?
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that consent agenda has been approved. We might get this by the time my term's over. Thank you. All right, item 3.1. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on agenda or non-agenda items? Seeing no one, we'll move to item 3.2 for a legislative update from President Sanders.
Good evening, everyone. I thought I would just start tonight, get us warmed up a little bit for the legislative session that kicks off on January 9th by sharing with you what the governor proposed in her budget address last week related to the technical colleges. Really appreciate the governor's leadership in her proposal last week. She proposed for the full technical college system, all 4 tech colleges around the state, so Watertown, Southeast Tech in Sioux Falls, Mitchell Tech in Mitchell, and Western Dakota Tech in Rapid City, a 4% increase to state aid for the technical colleges. The state aid formula for the tech colleges works just a little bit differently than the K-12 formula does. Overall, last year, the current academic year that we're in, the state aid distribution to the tech colleges was just over $33 million. Of that, Lake Area received over $11 million. That total pool, $33 million, is distributed equally 25%. So every tech college has facilities, administration, operations to keep the lights on, make sure that we can provide education to students. So $33 million, a quarter of that was split 4 ways, and then the remaining 75% gets distributed based on enrollments in specific programs. Those enrollments in specific programs, then the amount of state aid that comes is based on the cost of offering that program. So for Lake Area Tech, we receive more money per enrollment for a heavy equipment operator student than we do for a business student. Costs more money to offer heavy equipment than it does a business program. And so when the governor proposed a 4% increase to state aid, it would be increasing that $33 million pool of funding by 4% to cover the services of educating students, the operations of our facilities and their maintenance, expenses like staff salaries and benefits, so the entire supplement that state aid is to the tuition dollars and the donations that students invest in their education. So really appreciate the governor doing that. By law, the CPIW came in at about 3%. So by law, the governor would not have had to propose 4%. So really appreciate the recognition of the current economic environment that we're in. She also proposed $4.8 million in one-time funding for equipment purchases. You all know very well how important equipment is to our ability to provide quality education to our students at the Tech College, and so again appreciate the governor in putting that proposal forward. She is asking that the state funds of 4.8 get matched by the Tech Colleges at about $2.4 million, so it'd be a 2-to-1 match between the state and the Tech Colleges, very similar to the current equipment grant that we have from the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So with the kickoff of session on January 9th, all of those topics and more will be discussed in the legislature, and so I'll keep you apprised throughout the process of what the discussion is and where things land, but off to a good start with the governor's budget proposal. Stand by for any questions that you have.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into personnel. Start with 4.1.1.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We didn't have any resignations this month.
Always wonderful. Move to item 4.1.2 with contract recommendations and
Very
addendums.
good. In the proposal before you, you'll see 3 positions in permanent positions recommended for your approval, and then a variety of adjunct instructor, temporary part-time, and corporate education instructors contracts before you. Recommend approval as presented.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract recommendations and addendums.
Motion by Laura.
Second?
Second by Rossman. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's been approved. We'll move into property.
First item, 4.2.1, is consider a professional services contract for a pilot. We recommend the authority to enter into a pilot service contract with Charlotta Scott to ferry a Cessna 172 that we purchased with the GOED equipment funds from Libby, Montana to Greeley, Colorado. That plane is scheduled to have an avionics upgrade in Greeley, and then it'll make its way to Lake Area Tech to be part of our fleet for the fixed wing pilot program. You'll see the rates before you: $500 per day of flying, $250 per day if there are weather-related delays, as well as reimbursement for travel costs to return to her home. Recommend approval as presented.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the pilot contract for services as explained and presented.
Motion by Moulton.
Second.
Second by Iverson. Questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's been approved. We'll move to item 4.2.2.
Thank you. This is a equipment bid consideration for the diesel program, Cutaway Diesel After Treatment System Trainer. We recommend accepting the sole bid that came from First Technologies, Inc. To purchase that trainer at a price of $28,188. The trainer is funded in full from GOED equipment grant, and the bid met all of our specifications.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Iverson.
Second.
Second by Moulton. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's been approved. Move to item 4.2.3.
Thank you. This is an equipment bid consideration for our Medfire Rescue Program. Extrication and high-angle rescue gear is what's at hand. We recommend accepting the low bid that came from Alex Air Apparatus 2 Incorporated for the gear at a bid price of $7,090.80. That is under budget. It will be purchased with our equipment grants from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and the bid meets all of our specifications.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the bid for extrication and high-angle rescue gear.
We have a motion by Moulton. Is there a second?
Second.
By Iverson. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Item 4.2.4.
This is an equipment bid for extrication equipment, again in our Medfire Rescue Program. We recommend accepting the low bid from McQueen Emergency for the equipment at a price of $34,573.94. Again, will be purchased with the GOED equipment grant in under budget and meets all of our specifications.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Iverson.
Second.
Second by Moulton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Moving on to 4.2.5.
Our final equipment bid consideration is for Medfire Rescue's program self-contained breathing apparatus fill station. Say that 9 times fast. The recommendation we have is to accept the low bid from McQueen Emergency for the fill station at a bid price of $46,440.26. It will be purchased with the GOED equipment grant and meets all of our specifications.
Well, let's see who wants to make a motion on that one.
I move approval of the self-contained breathing apparatus fill station as presented.
Nice.
Yeah.
Motion by Moulton. Is there a
Second.
All right, second by Iverson. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Item 4.2.6.
Thank you. This relates to authority to purchase for our diesel program. No bids were received for the diesel engine and transmission tooling, and so we seek your authority to purchase that tooling not to exceed $50,000. All of the tooling will be covered through the GOED grant.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Iverson, second by Moulton, I think.
Yep, second. Get it in there.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved as well. Item 4.2.7.
One more authority to purchase for the diesel program. This is for a diesel transmission. No bids were received for that transmission. We recommend authority to make the purchase on one transmission not to exceed $10,000. It will be funded through the GOED equipment grant.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the authority to purchase diesel transmission as presented.
Second.
Motion by Moulton and a second by Iverson. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Item 4.2.8.
Thank you. We seek your approval for 2 equipment leases for the Heavy Equipment Operator Program. Both of these are low-cost lease agreements. The first is with Borsheim Builders Supply for a crane. We'll be leasing that for 2 months at $6,200 per month. The second piece of equipment is a Volvo wheel loader from Transource Truck and Equipment over the course of 7 months, and we'll pay $1,000 per month for that wheel loader. Recommend your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we consider the lease agreements.
Motion by Iverson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Moulton. Questions, comments? Those are great leases.
Yeah.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Item 4.2.9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our final item, I'm very excited to share with you tonight, and you've been involved in the process since last summer when we brought before you the request to do the architectural engineering to redesign and remodel our dental assisting program facilities. Much of that facility is original or several decades old and is in need of a refresh, and we hear all the time from dentists that are partners of the dental assisting program how great our students are prepared, and our students are looking for great facilities to pair with that. So the architectural and engineering was completed this fall. We went to bid, received 5 bids on this project, and we would like to award the bid or accept the bid from Gray Construction. It was the low bid on the project. The base bid was $1,220,700, and we seek a construction contingency of $61,035 on top of that, bringing a total construction cost estimated at $1.281 million. We will be paying for this project with cash on hand at the college that was designated for this kind of project.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the construction bid to Gray Construction as presented.
Motion by Mosley.
Second.
Second by Iverson. Questions, comments?
Should be great to expand that program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
smile and say cheese on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, that didn't ring out.
Oh, that's the jokester.
Took me a while.
Yeah. All right, move to item 5.1. Is there anyone here from the public to speak? Does not appear to be, so item 5.2 with the Northeast Tech update.
Yes, no superintendent's meeting this month, but just a reminder for our board members who are on the Northeast Tech Board, we are having a meeting on December 20th at 5:45.
Okay, moving to item 5.3 with the Pride Survey results. Welcome.
So I'm going to share with you the Pride Survey data that our students in grades 7 through 12 participate in. I usually get wordy on my presentation, so I am going to stick to my notes to keep within that 10 to 15 minute frame. But also, if you guys have questions or anything like that, please feel free to do so. For those of you that don't know, I'm Kelly Rumsa. I work at the Human Service Agency. I've been there for 25 years. Primary purpose is prevention and early intervention services within our school and in our community. And in the world of prevention, we look at strategies that foster and enhance resiliency and protective factors within our youth, and then looking at what tools, skills, information, resources we can provide to help them make better and healthier choices. Our kids only know what they know. They grow up in their environment, and so what our role is not only to provide resources to them, but also to raise awareness and educate our community as well. The next slide. So I like to throw in a little humor when we talk about data. Don't believe everything you think, and that's why we do a lot of outcome-based, data-driven strategies, because a lot of our drive comes from attitudes and perceptions that we see, and so that we need to use the data to look at what the picture is at this time frame. What we think sometimes isn't what is actually happening, and so it's important for us to ask questions, and that's the purpose of the data that we share, is for us to ask questions to look at the why here, why now. Both looking at the positive and the negative things that might be influencing the attitudes and choices and behaviors of our youth. All right, so why do we do the Pride Survey? Like I mentioned, this helps us to look at our students' behaviors in a realm of different aspects. We look at drug use, we look at their perceptions and attitudes around that. We look at student mental health and physical health. We look at school climate, family life, and the risk and protective factors. Our last survey was just done now in October. We had over 1,400 students participate in grades 7 through 12, which is a very nice student population sample. And so looking at this data, it's taking that fact-based approach to understand and address their concerns and issues, which this data can be looked at in many different ways. It's a lot of information, but tonight I'm just going to highlight some of the data which pertains to the health and safety of our students and what could be impacting those behaviors. So this slide shows 30-day use rates. When we're looking at Watertown's data, we can look at annual use rates along with monthly use rates. I like to look at 30-day use because that shows us more regular use. And we also can compare to looking at the national data that Pride Surveys provides. And with looking at that information, our students are reporting less use with most of the substances. Tonight I'm focusing primarily on vape products, alcohol use, and marijuana use, because those are the 3 primary substances that we're seeing with our youth population. I've also included in this slide binge drinking so that we can look at that aspect of it as well. What we have identified is we've spent the last few years knowing the upward trend of vape products. We have spent the last couple years doing a lot of education and awareness in regards to that, and as a result you can see that use rates have gone down, especially with our high school population. Middle school has gone down a little bit, but still concerning. Overall, what we're seeing with trends use in regards to 30-day use is that our younger ages are having access and utilizing the substances a lot earlier than what we've had a few years prior. And so then we look at what can be the cause and factors behind that. All right. So what influences use rates and behaviors? First, we look at students' perceptions of risk. They know there's risks, but it might not deter them from their use. They recognize the risk, but there might not be consequences, and the reward is maybe more rewarding for them in using that substance. Perception of parental disapproval. Our country has seen a significant shift in parental attitudes in regards to that, and so we look at what is the messaging or the role modeling that's taking place to encourage use or no use among our student population, and does that deter their use? Perception of friends' disapproval. Friends groups are recognizing use and behaviors. They know it's wrong but continued with behavior or the use because they haven't gotten caught, which is a national trend that we are seeing with our youth and young adults. Availability and resources. This is one that we've seen a significant shift with over the last few years, especially within our community, looking at social and retail access. What we've seen in the community is more businesses selling alcohol, vape products, marijuana products, and a result of that too is adults not understanding the severity of these products available to our young people. And just for an example, in the last 2 to 3 years in regards to vape products, we had 3 stores in our community that sold that specific product, and now we have 9 in our community that sell that specific, and that doesn't include the convenience stores, grocery stores that sell that product. Same in regards to alcohol, with the ordinance that was interpreted differently within the last couple years. We had the 8 liquor stores in our community, and now we have beer wine sales in our grocery stores, convenience stores, and things like that. So looking at the availability, the accessibility, what kind of messaging does that provide to our youth? And also the other thing is that access of it. And then also looking at gender, we look at trends. Do we see higher use rates among male and female populations? What is that looking like? And for the most part, we're starting to see that leveling out, or even we're seeing a higher female use of substances. The next slide then is just showing us or painting that picture of these items that I've been talking about in regards to perception of risk and the disapproval of friends and parents and access. With this data, we're able to identify those trends and concerns that we're seeing. And again, I wanted to highlight in regards to the vape products. We spent, like I said, time educating, raising awareness. We've looked at changes in our policies and protocols and with our programming, and it's been an effort with the school district, with community-based organizations, with our diversion programming, and we've seen a shift where students are understanding the harm of these substances, and so we have been seeing that decline of use. Areas of concern, like I said, is that perception of harm regarding marijuana. That is lower than alcohol and vape products, and so that causes concern. When we see that lower risk, we're going to likely see an increase of use, and so we're also seeing that with underage drinking as well. Okay. The next thing that we looked at is when and where students use substances, and again, like I said, I'm focusing on alcohol, vape products, and marijuana. And it's asking the students, where are you most likely to use these products and when are you most likely to use? With alcohol, typically it's at home on the weekends are the most prevalent. With marijuana and e-cigarettes and smoking follow the similar trends. If they're using at home, they're using before school, they're using on weeknights, so it's kind of that more consistency. But what I wanted to focus on is typically they're reporting where there's no supervision or not as many rules enforced. And I wanted to note that at school and during school were the least reported for all substances. So this next slide are the risk factors identified or assessed in the survey. Pride survey identifies 14 risk factors. What I have on this slide are the 7 that are 10% or higher, or close to that 10% range. We look at percentages greater than 10, causes for us to be looking at what's going on in our school and in our community in regards to these concerns. We also have ranges of 20 to 30%, which is trouble with police, threatening behaviors, which means they're afraid of being hurt or have been threatened to be hurt, and then prevalent concerns of harm of self and harm to others. And so with this data, when we look at it, is we need to be asking ourselves who or what is influencing and impacting their behaviors. You know, is it the lack of empathy? Is it a maturity issue? Are our social skills been impacted and we don't know how to interact with others? And so those are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves when we're looking at this type of data. Is what is reflective of our student behaviors? What are they seeing? What are they experiencing? How are others handling conflict and stressful situations? And then looking at what skills do we need to be implementing so that they know how to handle things in a less conflicted way. What I want to point out with our 3 highest areas are threats and thoughts that our students have. You know, they've been afraid that a student may hurt them or a student has threatened. So that the threats and thoughts are higher than what's been acting out, and we've seen a decline from 2021 to this year's reporting, so that's a positive too. So I wanted to point out thoughts of suicide because mental health has been something that we've been focusing on the last few years as well. Our county has been impacted by suicide over the last few years, and it's something that we continue to address. And so the questions that we ask the students here is, have you seriously considered suicide? And so we look at sometimes, often, or a lot. And looking at that aspect of it, we have seen a decline with students in reporting, so that is a positive. We're also looking at that next step of, because everybody has those thoughts, but are they acting on those thoughts as well? And so when we ask the question about have you made a plan in the last 12 months, we're also seeing a decline with that as well. So we're moving in the right direction, but there's still areas of where we need to be addressing. What I also want to point out with this slide as well is that we've done over the last few years is we've been encouraging people to talk about their mental health, that it's okay to feel this way, it's okay to ask for help. And so part of that too, we want to be reflective of, we're seeing an increase of our students going and asking for that help as well. So that is a positive. So we don't know necessarily if there are more having those thoughts and things like that, but we're encouraging them to have those conversations. But what we do identify with is some don't know how to have that conversation or don't know how to bring up their feelings, and so we might see it in a crisis situation or we might see it in a behavior or things like that, and that is their way of communicating that. So one of our focuses is getting them to express what they're feeling and what their thoughts are and what are those healthy coping skills so that we don't get to that crisis point. So this next slide is asking students, where do you feel least safe at school? And with this question, it's the student's interpretation of what they define as safety. There's no definition to that. And so for an example, if you look at the parking lot example, if you've been at the middle school or high school during the end of school or beginning of school, it's like Frogger. So looking at that interpretation of it too, but what this data does, it helps us to open that conversation of what is the student's interpretation of safety concerns, and then what are those ways of addressing it. So for middle school, we saw improvements with the students reporting across the board, but we saw an increase of safety concerns in regards to the bathroom. With the high school, we saw a shift towards hallway safety with improvement, but there are some other concerns to be addressing, especially with the bathroom and parking lot. School attendance, This is something that I know that the school district has been focusing on, and we're hoping with some additional questions that we asked in the Pride survey that will help with the campaign and the motivation of why attendance is important and that we want you to be at school. We've always asked, have you skipped without parents knowing? This year we asked, have you skipped with parents knowing? And looking at that factor of, we have our students who do skip school, but we also have quite a few students who skip with parents knowing, so then that helps us frame that conversation with our parents, stressing the importance of being at school and what their role is, and looking at that accountability. So then we move on to the protective factors, and this is looking at what is in place and or what can be put in place to reduce the risk factors that we've been talking about. And what is important is with the prevention of adolescent substance use and related behaviors, it's most likely to occur when students feel connected to their community and they've been provided tools to avoid these harmful behaviors. And so what we look at, this is the students against perceptions of what they feel are their protective factors. And I love that the students feel that most of them report that they make good grades. Doesn't say what good grades are, but they are making good grades, and so we want to build on that. Another strong suit with our students is their faith community, as well as being engaged in school activities. We're starting to see some growth in those areas, which is a positive. What we're also looking at is looking at our students wanting to help each other out. Are we encouraging that inclusion and feeling like they belong and that they're understood? And so those are additional questions that we've asked the students this year in the survey. And so what's important to look at is we might have students reporting, like I had shown, that they feel threatened or that they don't feel that they belong. But we need to look at how do they act or react to those scenarios and situations, and do they have those positive outlets to respond to that or the supports in place. So with this slide, I wanted to show twofold of this question. One is to remind students what are the helping resources in the school and in the community. The second piece of it is, over the last couple years, have we seen a shift where they are more aware of helping resources, which we did see a shift with more awareness in regards to mental health and substance use resources, which again is reflective of what we've been trying to accomplish over the last couple years. And then this slide is asking students making what healthy choices or what are some self-care things that they're doing, because we want to identify and have them to be able to identify what those options may be. So again, this question is twofold. One, to get them to be thinking about what are some self-care things that they can be doing, but then also what are they doing. And what is standing out strong and true is talking with someone they trust, whether it's with family and friends, and participating in healthy activities and hobbies, and then getting that sleep. And all of those are key elements for our students to feel like they belong, to feel that they have that positive outlet. And so what tools are we providing so they continue those healthy habits and coping skills? And then we always like to ask the students, why do you think teens choose not to drink or to use substances? And what we continue to see is looking at who are the role models in their lives, what are the impact that they have, and what keeps them wanting to do the things that they want to do. And goal setting is probably one of the most important protective factors students can have. Number one is having a caring adult in their life. And so the more that we can reinforce boundaries, expectations, rules, and providing caring and engagement atmospheres in both our school and community, it's going to help our students to grow and to be thriving adults. And if you look at this, number one is they don't want to disappoint parents or other adults. It's against the law. They have future goals and plans, and they don't want to lose their eligibility in their activities, or it's their faith base are those strong, and even against school rules. And so we just look at that role modeling that our students have. And so again, with students, who or what influences you? Number one is parents. Almost 75% of our students reported that parents are who they look for their answers. 50% of the students said their friends. And so that's asking, do you know who your kids' friends are or their parents? A quarter said their siblings. And so again, what do those siblings look like? Do they know that they're that role model? Are they also a positive influence, young or old? And coaches and teachers are still strong influencers as well. And all of those ranked higher than any social media, TikTok influence. So even though we feel that that plays a big role, which it does in some capacity, we still have, with parents, friends, adults, family members, still have that big influence over our kids. And so we just need to look at what is our messaging, how are we getting our messages across to our students, and how do we impact that. And then we can do our last slide really quick. And then if you have any information or would like to know more about the information, this was kind of the kickoff to the data. We'll be using the data in different capacities now. But if you have any questions, I tried to be really fast, so it's a lot of information.
Kelly, the 30-day use rate, is that the metric is on 1 or more days, is that correct, during the past 30 days?
Yep.
Okay.
I remember.
Go ahead, go. This survey is given every other year?
Yep. So we try to follow that. We typically do it in the fall as well, so we're kind of doing it during the same time of year. And again, we look at what events, what activities may be taking place, looking at that impact of our student population. And again, it's a snapshot of our students, and it's their perceptions, it's their attitudes, but we need to look at why are they responding in this way with those questions. And again, it's not to blame or point fingers, but it's help us to ask the questions and to look at what we are doing, or what do we need to be looking ahead. But it also helps us to look at what have we been doing and have we made an impact or the outcome that we've been wanting to see with the programming that we've been doing.
Is this voluntary?
Yep, they have the choice, and with the questions, so they can choose to skip over an answer if they want to. So when you look at the survey data, it gives us the numbers of students who responded to each of the questions. If responses would get less than 10 responses, they would throw that question out or not provide us with that data, just to protect the students' answers. So the survey is very valid and reliable in that capacity, and we get a very good response rate. It's very typical every year we survey.
You can add your own questions?
We do, yep. So we added 20 additional questions, which we do that looking at maybe awareness or efforts that we might be doing at a local level, or if there's issues that the school is looking at and wanting to kind of gauge where our student population is. So that information is used in that different way, so that we can change it up, or if we want to use it as a comparison of a question that maybe is asked at a state or a national level, so then we can have that comparison too. So some of those questions were included in that, but then we have that information separated too. Like I said, we just got the data back, and so we're just starting to dive into it a little bit more. But the additional questions that we asked really focused on engagement, the inclusion, belonging, getting their perceptions of being involved in activities and things like that.
So what tools and methods do you use to interact with the school?
So for us specifically, we have our Project Success program at the middle and high school, where that is the prevention early intervention programming, where we do classroom education, we do screenings with students who might have violations with school. We work with the Cottington County Diversion Program. So that purpose is trying to reach kids before it evolves into a bigger problem, to identify what those risk factors are and introduce resources and programming to them. We do individual education opportunities, we do groups, but a lot of it is that awareness piece. And then at a community level then is facilitating the different community coalitions, but also being involved in other organizations as well. We're just kind of trying to spread the information and making it pertinent to the existing organizations, businesses, communities, organizations within Watertown to use this information. So it's interesting. Prevention is a hard concept for people because we're trying to prevent things from them actually happening. So when we look at numbers, that's a hard sell. So we always look at the after effect. And so by me reporting and saying that we saw a decline in students reporting thoughts of suicide, I can look at that we've been implementing campaigns, we've been educating, we've been getting resources out to the kids, we've been, connecting them to resources. So I'm going to say what we've been doing has helped to impact those numbers. So that's kind of how we gauge that as an example.
So you must work probably, say at the high school level, with that advisory.
We provide advisory, so we have one person, Michelle Octoberg is our project success coordinator at the high school, and then Haley Rouse at the middle school. And so students come in when they need to, or if they're referred by administration, or it's self-referrals or families, or if there's a school violation. They do classroom presentations, so if advisory wanted them to do a presentation, absolutely. Staff presentations. Haley at the middle school, since we have health class at the 7th and 8th grade level, she automatically goes into the health grade, so we implement curriculum in that capacity. So it's really, we're at the disposal of where the school sees the need, and we try to provide those resources as best as we can in that prevention and early intervention, connecting the kids to resources, making them aware of, hey, do you know this resource is available, or this counselor could be available, and really trying to, almost like case management sometimes with students, but we're really on that preventive early intervention aspect of it.
And finally, social media influence is a
It plays a
danger.
role. Yep, it absolutely does.
Absolutely. It'd
Yep.
be interesting to know how much time students actually spend on their cell phones or on
Well, one of the
social media.
questions that they ask the students is, would you like to not be on your phone as much? And the majority of the students say yes, but then we see them on their phones. So again, we look at, they know what they should be doing, but it's, are we giving them the tools and the opportunities to take it away? And then we look at our adult population, are we role modeling that same behavior? It's like, get off your phones, but here we are on our phones too. So a lot of it is that too. So, and using it in good ways. It's not going away. So how do we put in those steps of responsible use in all aspects of things?
Thank you.
You bet.
I just have a couple comments, Kelly.
Mhm.
So I appreciate seeing that the decrease in the 30-day use rate is really, that's honestly awesome.
It
to
is.
see that significant across the board. There's maybe one area that I don't even know, did they all decrease? And looking at that data, that's impressive. And the other one I was really happy to see was that the thoughts and plans for suicide had also decreased significantly. I mean, that's also not just a small percentage that it decreased.
No, and
that's great.
I mean, it's something ongoing. You know,
Yeah.
when what we generally see in the field of prevention is we start seeing a decline, and people are like, oh, we fixed it, and so we're going to take away funding, or we're going to stop doing programming. And what people need to realize, this is ongoing. These are life skills that we need to, because there's different stressors, different factors that come into play. And so, and it showed even with our substance use, we focused a lot on vape products these last few years, and now we're starting to see a creep up with other substances. So we need to address the trends at hand, but we also need to look at that big picture of overall healthy coping skills, decision making, no matter what situation you're put into. So, and looking at policies and enforcement too. You know, the school district changed their policies, which I feel has better helped and assisted our students, because now we're introducing them to resources a lot sooner than maybe in the past.
Well, thanks to you and the
Well, it's a
success
community, yeah,
coordinators
we
and
have
community and school partnerships on
a lot
this,
of
'cause it's really
partnerships.
important in making this impact. So thank you.
I thought it was interesting in one of your last slides that the number one influence, 75% of the people said it was their parents. You know, and I vaguely remember being a parent. And
Right.
you sometimes wonder, you know, do the kids listen to anything you say? And this evidence tells them
It does.
they do listen.
They do listen
Yeah.
with their eye rolls and everything like that too. Yes, I have a freshman daughter, and she's going to be embarrassed if she finds out that I'm talking about her, but it's like, and it's how we communicate. It is that messaging that we do, and we just have to be repetitive, and we have to have that support of other parents and other adults that we're entering into things that we've never experienced ourselves as parents. When we look at social media, we look at the drug trends and things like that. So it's okay for us not to know. So we want to be able to provide you with the opportunities and the outlets and the resources of finding that information so you can talk to your kids about it, because us not talking about it is not going to help it. And what we've experienced growing up is totally different to what they're experiencing right now. We can't compare at all. And so that's a hard sell for adults as well, which we have found out with with some of the new products that we're finding in our vape shops and things like that, it's not natural. It's not what you might have experienced when you were growing up, and it's serious concerns that we do have, and seeing our use rates not increase, because I thought they would just because of that, tells me that we have very resilient kids in our community, even though the different factors that do come into play. But we still need to be that advocate, and we still need to look at ways of keeping our community healthy and safe so our kids can continue to thrive. We own it. Our community needs to own it. They're our kids, and we need to make it right for them.
And just a thank you to Human Service Agency for this grant. I know the behind the scenes, there's a lot of grant writing that goes into funding this program, and you guys fund almost 75% of it, and we take the other 15% and roll that into the funding with our Title IV dollars.
Very passionate. I've seen the impact once we've started implementing school-based programming. I'm the biggest advocate of it all, and like I said, our partnerships. So if it wasn't for all the partners in the community that we have, it wouldn't be possible either. So I mean, it truly is a community effort. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You bet.
All right, 5.4 with a math update, please. Welcome.
I get to talk to you about some of the things we've been doing with our math efforts over the last bit of time. In September, I believe, I gave you the update about summer, and it did include some of the math pieces. This will be a little bit deeper look at what some of those pieces might be. So I started with this quote, is just that mathematics is not about numbers, equations, computations, or algorithms. It is about understanding. And really that's foundationally anchoring all that we've been trying to work on with all of our staff, that we need to develop students who understand math at all of the levels in all of the formats, and so that's been our goal. This slide just talks about the curriculum timeline. You've seen that before, so I'm not going to share that again, but I wanted you to have it as a reference, that this kind of a 2-year process really has been 3 because of our research year that we did. We are in the middle there of 23-24. We will be selecting our product, so by summer we will have it in place. By fall it will be implemented, and so that's how close it is. Our next steps, these are the things that I listed on our slide in September, saying this is what we are doing as our next items on our to-do list. And I'm going to go into each of those with a little bit more depth, and I'll give you those specifics. So our foundational math work really is a long game, and I would just really caution that it's not an overnight fix. It's not something that we will see immediate results of, but that our successes and our struggles are really a result of our whole programmatic look in the district. So as the kids progress all the way from our pre-K through graduation, are we giving them a program that supports them all along the way? Our math work is based on the South Dakota Standards of Mathematics, and so I just put some bullets on there to remind us of what those really are. It's really what students should know and be able to do, and it outlines it at every specific level. We want to have consistent expectations for students all the way through. We want them to be developmentally appropriate for whatever age learner they are. We want to make sure that there's no gaps, so that as they progress they aren't skipping an important skill, and no overlap, so that we're not repeating things that they don't need, but really capitalizing on the time that we have. We want it should be designed to develop that understanding and build sequentially over time. And the last thing on there is just talking, why does this seem like new math? Like sometimes that's referred to as this crazy new math. The math skills are not new. Like math really hasn't changed that much over time, but some of the new pieces, it can feel new, especially to proficient learners. This could be parents, it could be teachers, it could be board members, because the way we learned it is maybe different than the way it's being presented now. And that's because we already understand it. Like when we see how it's being shown, that's not how I learned it. I learned to carry the 1 and add the columns or subtract and borrow. But until students know what each of those things mean, why they're putting the 10 up top, where they're borrowing from, how they're regrouping those numbers, it doesn't make sense to them. And so unless we explain it with all that detail, there can be gaps in that knowledge. And so that can feel new because it's presented differently than when we learned it. we don't want our students to just be rule followers, trying to remember the rule. We want them to understand the process of solving the problem so that they can attack new things in new ways as they present throughout their life. And so we need to select a curriculum that would support those needs and based on those standards. So that's really the first thing we look at is, are all of the curriculums we're exploring aligned with the South Dakota state standards? Our foundational math study that we did throughout the last school year was really to identify what are those essential learning pieces for math success. And we want to understand that what happens if that knowledge is not in place, and that our product should support those beliefs. The 3 cores that, you've seen this before, there's 3 cores that really are the foundation of math learning: number core, relations core, and operations core. And at the bottom I put which grades those typically are presented and covered. And if students do not develop these cores within those grades, there can be long-lasting effects because they then have holes. If the foundation is not strong enough to build upon, they won't be ready for the next skills as they show up. And you'll see that they all should be in place by about 3rd grade. And so everything we're doing from 3rd grade on is foundationally built upon these 3 core areas. So we spent a lot of time in our summer work, K-12, talking about this awareness for everyone, including our high school, middle school, intermediate school teachers, to show the importance of these pieces, because those effects might not show up right away. If they're missing something out of relations core, I'll use the example of number parts, that a number can be broken into different parts. If you can know that 7 can be a 3 and a 4, or a 5 and a 2, or a 6 and a 1, if you have that strong understanding, you can then break it apart, you can make other numbers, you can get close to 10, you can know your doubles. There's all kinds of things that you can connect to that. But if you didn't catch that when you were in 1st or 2nd grade, you maybe followed the rule and you knew how to answer the question on that page, but when it comes to later, when you're trying to apply that to solve something where the rule isn't evident, it's much, much more difficult. And so we want to make sure that those cores are in place, or the skills will seem very disconnected. Fact fluency is always an important topic. What I would point out on the bottom there, where it talks about fluency moving from counting to reasoning to mastery, this is really more than just memorizing. We need our students to be able to think through how to solve problems flexibly, accurately, efficiently, appropriately, all of those things. If they only memorize, there are over 400 individual facts just with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we know that sometimes our memory fails. And so if we're trying to remember from memory over 400 facts and we don't have a strategy to fall back on, or we don't have the reasoning or understanding to understand it, it will not be that automatic recall that we want our students to have. So our standards are written to expose students to a variety of solutions to how to, or strategies to solve those problems. And too often students feel the push to get to that mastery, to get to that memory, to know them really fast, when really we should be worried more about that reasoning level. Do they understand how to find the answer? Because if they know how, they will become more fluid in it, and it will become more automatic. Students now are different than they were. I can only speak 30 years back because that's how long I've supposedly been at this. 30 years ago, they were very different. 20 years ago, they were different. Even 5 years ago, they were different than they are now. They play fewer dice games, card games, taking turns games. They build with fewer Legos. They're outside less. Like, all those things are influencing their math understanding and the understanding of the world around them. And so we're trying to compensate for some of the pieces that kids used to come with. Our early childhood and kindergarten teachers really feel the effects of that. Like, some of what we're seeing, they maybe used to come in knowing those things, and now we're having to do a lot more of that work within our classrooms to build that foundation so that those holes are not there. And we can't skip that reasoning part. The brain development, we spent time at our grade levels and with all of our math teachers working on brain development, and the thing I would point out about this is that we need to spend enough time on base concepts to have that solid foundation, and it really does need to include both the explicit, where we're giving them the vocabulary, the rationale, the examples, the context, like that explicit teaching, but also the inquiry base of what will make it stick. What's the experience with it? What's the exposure to it? So if you think of a time when you had to struggle through something, or the first time you had to do something, it probably sticks in your mind. And that's the types of experiences we want our students to have. We are also reviewing instructional practices, and as I said, these are not overnight changes because change is very hard. But then the slide will show you the effective math teaching practices, and I circled a few things on the slide there that just really have been the heart of what we are looking for as we're considering new products. And that, again, these aren't new. This comes from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. It's a book called Principles to Actions, and it really outlines what they have found to be the most influential things in mathematics teaching. And we are really looking at meaningful tasks, like what are we having our students do that develops that understanding. A lot of focus on discourse, like what does the conversation look like? How does the explanation happen? Are students learning from each other? Are they explaining their thinking in different ways so they can see other ways to solve? Posing those purposeful questions to guide that discussion, and that takes a lot of professional knowledge. And so helping our teachers feel confident in what those questions should be and how to guide if there's a gap in that learning, how do you back up, how do you scaffold to help them grow to the next level? And then really important is that productive struggle. When students don't feel good at math or they feel like they are struggling, how do they respond? Do they give up or do they persevere? And how do we help them develop those habits of mind and best practices to struggle through so that they come out as more successful? When we attended, we took a team of 12 to the NCTM conference in Washington, D.C. in late October. And thanks to the Arrowhead Foundation, it was a great experience because we had representation from all across the grade levels, and it reaffirmed that these really are the things that make the biggest difference to students' learning and in their math career, is to focus on these pieces. These standards of math practice are there for reference. This is a framework for embedding, that we want to see these embedded all the way through all of our math instruction, and this is where those habits of mind and productive struggle thoughts come from. So no matter if they're in geometry or if they're in third grade math or if they're in Algebra 1, whatever it might be, we want them doing these things because these are the behaviors of successful math students, and that everything is solvable if you follow these kind of guidelines. And so that should shape some of our work. We've been doing lots of professional development at our after our foundational work and summer work. I would also add that we've now had our grade level work in June, October. We'll meet again in January. Our 512 departments have a monthly time when they do meet, and we are doing our committee work. Like just today, I spent the day with our K4, pre-K through 4 math committee reps looking at the products, trying to make some recommendations on what we might consider for curriculum, and so that is ongoing. One of the other next steps was to understand mathematical progressions, like as students move through the grades, what is it that is most important and how does it build upon each other? And so I just put in some, Graham Fletcher is a math teacher who has these progressions videos that really break down skills all the way across the grades. And so you might be interested in just seeing how those skills develop through the grades. And we showed these, all of our teachers in the summer, they watched the ones that apply to the grades they teach. Even if it's fractions at an upper level, fractions start all the way down in first and second grade talking about equal parts, and so it talks about how the fractions develop all the way through as an example. And so we want them to understand how to backfill some of those gaps and what the progressions look like as students are missing out on things so that they're able to meet those needs. We want our students to understand the conceptual side of math, and the cubes are just one idea of that, but all the manipulatives, the hands-on pieces, the graphic organizers, the 10 frames, the number lines, all those things that really we use to introduce math concepts. And it feels like the goal is to get them procedural where they can just do it on paper or know the answer, but that relationship should go back and forth all the way through. And what we were finding is that the hands-on pieces really need to last longer than they probably have. We sometimes push students to give up the hands-on pieces faster than they should because that relationship is not as obvious as it needs to be. And so we want our students and teachers to feel comfortable using those models at all levels all the way through and using them in different ways. So a first grader would use tens and ones blocks in one way, but a fifth grader should use tens and ones blocks in another way. Probably not as long, but they should be exposed to those tools to be able to see where that relationship comes from so that they feel more comfortable on the procedural side. This slide talks about how the standards are organized. You'll see there's a very clear split between 5th and 6th grade. Typically, you can see the first 3 organizations of structure switch at 5th grade, and I would even say in Watertown it might be more at the 5th grade because our students funnel into a new building at that point. They're coming from 5 different sites, and each of those sites kind of has their own flavor of how math is taught in those buildings. And so when they switch and they're all in one place, those teachers are getting kids who have multiple different experiences. And so I would say our split would be 5th and 6th grade, you'd see quite a switch. And you'll see that those 3 layers go into 2, into expressions and equations and the number system. So they're expected to bring all of that knowledge of those 3 foundational areas, and they kind of collapse and condense, and now we're going to use them in a different way. And so if they don't have that strong understanding and then they switch to a whole nother organization, that's where we see some of the struggle. And so we're trying to identify where should our program, what ages do we want in the same product so the vocabulary is similar and the presentation is similar. When we switch, how do we facilitate that from a teacher perspective, from a student perspective? And then it also switches again to the algebra framework at the high school level. Algebra and geometry would be based on that algebra. So we need a curriculum that is used with fidelity so that we can ensure what they're seeing as they go through, that it's not haphazard and it's not by chance, it's not by teacher choice. It is designed to provide them the foundation they need so that the skills are in place. I'm going to talk a little bit about data. Our smarter balanced data is what you typically see at the board level, but there's also other data that we see that I'm going to give you a little peek at some of our MAP data. Our MAP, NWA MAP testing is skill or standards-based data. It's adaptive at grade level. So our students take the MAP math test 3 times a year, fall, January, and spring, and we can use that benchmark data. It tests them on their understanding of standards no matter what the grade level. So if there's a gap, it's going to give them easier questions to try to identify where that gap is, and then harder questions if they're beyond grade level. And so this does give us a little broader range than the Smarter Balance. We would expect that students are performing, we want them to be performing to match or exceed the national norm. And the MAP test is given, this norms are pulled from 2020. It's given to more than 25,000 students across all 50 states. And so we feel like the norm is a pretty good comparison group, and we would like our students to be in that range. And so the next slide, go back one more, please, Mr. Barrios. So the blue one is going to be how far a cohort class grows from fall to spring. And so I taught 2nd grade, so I talk 2nd grade a lot. In 2nd grade, in the fall they tested here, in the spring they tested there, that's how much growth they made. The yellow line would be where my 2nd graders would test in 3rd grade. So same group of students, exact same students. I took them from the blue line, that's how far they grew for me. When they test in the fall of 3rd grade, they're at the yellow line. So you'll see there's a difference. The discrepancy is the red part. That's the regression. We do expect some regression over summer. That's accounted for. That's the national norm. So that right there would be what a national norm might look like. Now if you go to this one, this is a grade. I don't even know which grade it was, but we just pulled some sample classrooms to compare them to how that national mean might look. And so the circled one is the mean. And then I'm going to talk about some of those points on there. So that teacher A would have very similar growth to what the mean was. Their blue line is about the same, their yellow line is pretty close to the same, the red is about the same. They're pretty much a mean comparable class. If you look at the classroom C, their blue line is higher. They performed higher than the national mean, which would be a good thing. Their yellow line is higher than the national mean, so they retained more of it. Their red line at point C is about the same as the national mean, so they really had more growth. They were able to make more gains from fall to fall. If you look at classroom D, that blue line looks amazing. That class had a lot of growth, and so just an individual teacher or looking at one individual score point would say that class performed really well. But if you look at where they land in the fall of the very next year, they're below the national norm slightly, at or below that national norm. So they have a much longer red line, so they've regressed a lot. So they were potentially pushed really far in whatever grade this is, and by the next fall, they're right back in line with where the national mean is. And so where are we putting our energy, and how are we making sure those skills are solid? And so that's why I say it sometimes is going to be a long game, because we might need to back off on some of our push up to get the solid yellow is really what's more important to me, because we want them ready for the next thing. And so, yes, you can see the growth in a year. That's what our teachers only can see, the blue line. But when we at a district level can pull the cohort groups, we can start to see what that regression looks like over time. So we want to be watching some of those pieces. We want to consider our math programming needs. This slide, you've seen it. It's just where our classes, what pathways are available to our students. Some of our goals with revision would be to provide smoother transitions between those programs. So how could a student move between the traditional pathway and the accelerated pathway, or vice versa? How can they move between them? How can we keep students engaged in math learning so that they don't see that purple line is where they have hit their 3 math credits? We don't want them to stop taking math at 3 math credits. We want them to continue with a 4th year of math or beyond, because we know that prepares them to be better learners. We want to allow for movement between those pathways, and we want to create options for that 4th year of math at the high school. What could that look like? And there are other courses and things that districts offer that we can look at. So we are also reviewing and selecting materials. This just shows some of the things that we were looking at. We want to decide where to transition the materials. How do we facilitate those jumps from program to program? We want to make sure that the rich tasks and discourse are there. We want the professional support to be really outlined and in place, and that those skills progress as we need them to be supportive. So really, our goal overall is to create the best learning and opportunities for all of our students. That's the next slide. We want and I have to remind our teachers sometimes is that you have to put the student they're thinking of it, of what they teach every day in their room, and that's what they should be thinking about. But our representatives on the committee need to think about our students as they progress, and overall, what is their play in that program all the way across, and that our students have to come first, and our program should support those student needs at all levels. So that's what we've been up to on the math front.
Thank you. Questions?
Sure. Lots of factors to consider, many. So have you visited other schools within the state that are highly successful as well?
We haven't taken teams to visit. I know the high school has a visit planned. I have talked to other curriculum directors, and our math committee has reached out to other people who teach some of the products that we're looking at. So I know I have information on all the different products in use.
Yeah, I closely watch scores across the state from school to school. So it's always interesting to see who's doing what and who's highly successful. So it's possible that we might have different companies for different grade levels. Right now, I think we're using Pearson and Vision for K4, something like that.
Yes.
Do we ever compare to what the parochial schools in town are doing?
I know that IC uses what we use. I don't know about the Christian school or St. Martin's.
It'd be interesting just to see. Map testing versus smarter balance. Do we drill down and look specifically, this is a skill that we're short in over here at map testing, and we are also noticing may or may not.
Yeah, the map testing lets us see more specific skills. The smarter balance is for more broad categories, but we do that drill down on both of those as much as we can.
So we're now facing, and we have for a long time, global competition. It's not just here in the United States. Unfortunately, in the United States, the test scores for math are exceedingly low. It's very worrisome. What are we not doing that our competing countries are doing very well that we're not doing? So lots to consider. Something that the state kind of hides, and I'd really like to get into, is how many of our students and students in other schools within the state end up, when they go to college, they have to take a test to determine if they are going to be placed in a remedial math or a remedial reading or writing course. And for some reason, we can't always find out how many and who is being placed in those classes. Or I don't believe they're given credit either.
We
So
used
that-
to actually get a report of that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
been, I don't know that we've gotten one since I've been in Watertown, but I've seen it before, but it was 10+ years ago, and
Yep,
we've never been given an explanation why we don't
exactly.
get that.
It's hidden, so that's something I'm gonna be digging into. It's also interesting, what kind of skills does Lake Area need for their students? Are we providing enough of that? Giving a good background for that? Paper versus computer. It's a higher thinking skill to use paper and pencil than it is to sit in front of a computer or a calculator. So how much time are we dividing between each of those skills? On a kind of frivolous note, maybe we should encourage parents to buy dice games, counting games, card games for Christmas. And finally, I noticed where our scores tend to drop off is when students reach 5th grade. From there on up. It might have a bit to do, there's many factors possible. Might have a bit to do with the type of report card that we require for K-4. It's standard-based rather than merit-based. We don't give any scores, you can pass that on down. We don't give any scores for advanced, superior, super achiever. If you look at the 4th column, we don't use that column. We only grade up to a level 3. So that's K-4. By the time they reach 5th grade, now they're going to do A, B, C, D, E, F grading. So we haven't really pushed students in K-4 to super achieve, to work hard, to struggle at a problem, because just being proficient, which could be a quite low score, is considered good enough. Maybe it's a factor, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, I would think that that's where our MAP score would help us, because it does show us which skills they are strong in, and that would identify which skills are lacking.
Yeah, there is a big drop off. Our elementaries actually do pretty well, but by the time they reach 5th grade, there's a drop.
Some of that is that's where I'm thinking that condensing of the standards and the collapsing of those standards in that foundation, just, we need to make sure that it's solid.
Yeah. In high school, I know Mr. Barrios has mentioned they're working, the schedule there is very detrimental to core classes, math, English, etc., because there's a huge gap between each level that you take of a course. Could be many months, could be a year, could be a year and a half between Algebra 1 and then Algebra 2 because of block scheduling. And I think that's something that it's a problem, an issue they're working on, trying to find some solution. We know it's a huge detriment to carrying on skills because we ended up reteaching too much. So, thank you. I look forward to what kind of materials you're going to pick out.
As far as drilling down, are you able to drill down to the individual teacher level, or is it by grade, or just?
Teachers see their own class, principals see their own building. We can see all the, you can get to lots of different levels of the data, yes.
So there would be ways to identify which teachers are historically performing at a higher level?
So that graph you saw, the blue, yellow, red, we only have that for this year, but was something we can continue to track. We're cautious about it because every classroom has a story, like who's in the room. Is it proportions of language learners or special ed students or title students, or whatever it might be, as well as what's the experience level of the teacher, as we change curriculum, you will see an impact on scores. So I'm cautious about the teacher comparison, but we are aware of it, and that is something that principals work with their PLC teams on, so that teachers can do that reflection at their level of what kind of success they're seeing.
Is that, you mentioned this year, is that new for this year, or would we have been able to drill down to teacher level, building level for years prior as well?
We didn't have that report, like we had to build those graphs ourselves, and so it's not something we have historically. Like we have just this year of data for that part where it's the same exact cohort of students. We can see students' individual progress, like I can look up any individual student and see all of their testing for as long as we've been doing MAP. Or if they bring in MAP scores from somewhere else, that does track with them. But in terms of this cohort group of students and how that same group performed the next year, that we just have this year.
It's probably the number one issue that I hear from parents and people in the community is what we're doing about math and how parents struggle to help their children because we're teaching a slightly different version or different skills. So that's probably the number one thing that people talk to me about.
I think as a parent, it's really hard to help with math. Even if they're teaching it traditionally, it would be hard beyond because it's just so far from what I've done. Like even though I am a teacher and I did teach it and I knew it, I mean I took all the classes, but by the time they get beyond maybe 3rd or 4th grade, it all feels kind of foreign because it's a whole different set of vocabulary, a whole different set of language procedures and rules. And so I understand that and I'm glad our parents want to help our students, but from my perspective, we need our students to understand those procedures and our parents to be their cheerleaders to say, you can do it, you can do hard things, you can figure this out, you can apply this rule, this strategy, you can solve the problem. And so that's why I opened with that slide about understanding is that we need them to develop it so that the kids feel like they can do it. And to me, that's where I would like to see our efforts go.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I still think that applies to what we're using for a report card for K-4. I don't think we're rewarding those that work hard.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
Motion by Laura. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ross. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The bills have been approved. We'll move into personnel with Mr. Barrios.
A couple retirements for you tonight. Janet Brady, speech language pathologist, and Deborah Cox, food service manager at Jefferson, and recommend those for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the retirements, and add in that we will be waiving Janet Brady's penalties that she may have, or that would go with it to waive those.
Okay, there's a motion by Laura. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rossman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Moving into item 6.2.2.
A few resignations here for you and an activities position, and would recommend your approval on these.
Is there a motion to approve the resignations?
I will make a motion to approve resignations.
Motion by Rossman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lohr. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Move to item 6.2.3 with contract recommendations.
A few classified hires on here. The teacher apprenticeship mentors being paid their stipend for the semester. These would be mentors that are helping out our paras that are working to become certified teachers in our district. We also have school improvement hours. Just making note that on the green sheet, Gretchen and Kim should be just listed once there. And then an addition of Heather Polscher in our nutrition services. Also one other addition of Alex Mollengrath for one of our family support specialist positions that's part of our attendance grant. So working to fill 2 more of those positions.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract recommendations and addendums.
Motion by Laura. Second by Rossman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been approved. We'll move to property, item 6.3.1 with the review of the American Rescue Plan.
Yes, with the American Rescue Plan, there is the requirement in place that we bring this forward to the board every 6 months. The district approved the plan on August 9th of 2021, and we have reviewed it since then. A reminder that the district was awarded funds in the amount of $4.6 million, and those are to be obligated by September 30th of this year, or of 2024. Therefore, they span over the current fiscal year and terming at the end of the 23-24 school year. The funds have and continue to fund learning loss support, alternative education, summer school, counseling services, technology, early childhood, and strategic planning. The full plan can be viewed on the district's website. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the American Rescue Plan as presented.
Second?
Motion by Moulton, second by Iverson. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion has been approved. Item 6.3.2.
Yes, this is our safe return plan. No changes from the beginning of the year. And just a note, this is the last school year that we'll need to run through these as long as we still have the funds. But our COVID protocols have been returned when symptoms are gone, and that has gone fairly well this year. So recommend continuing with that.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Iverson,
Second.
second by Moulton. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's been approved. Item 6.3.3, supplemental budget.
Yes, this is adjustments to the 23-24 operating budget. In the general fund, we have $97,895 with the increase of the attendance grant, the career and student success revitalization grant, and the apprenticeship grant program, with those offsetting expenditures. In capital outlay, we have the Homeland Security grant of $11,460. That offset is for equipment for a door lock system that we're using to offset those funds. And then we have the use of cash on hand, which maintains the other 50% of that operation. Lake Area Technical College, we have $2.7 million in increased revenue and expenditures. We have the Advanced Technical Education grant of $108,000. Career and Tech Ed grant, as well as the GOED grant and the Perkins grant, which offset the equipment purchases that you hear every school board meeting. And then we have $1.9 million in use of cash on hand, and that offsets the expenditure of the construction of the dental assisting renovation of $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the supplemental budget as presented?
I move we approve the supplemental budget for 23-24 as presented.
Motion by Moulton.
Second?
Second by Iverson. Questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been approved. We will now consider the 24-25 calendar.
Yes, thank you. You have before you a draft of the 24-25 school year calendar with a start date of August 22nd. That would follow what I would call our traditional start date, which is 7 days of school prior to Labor Day. Run through with dismissal on December 20th for winter break and a return on January 2nd. One note, you had some student feedback. We did get a little student feedback on the possibility of a 2-week winter break. Just so people are aware, we did consider a draft of that, and based on our staff feedback, decided to go with the proposed calendar. It would have required an additional 2 days, starting an additional 2 days earlier, and having the start date pushed back to our traditional kind of one out within and internally and at our committee for that. End date of May 23rd. That's the Friday before Memorial Day. So in this calendar, we would have 2 built-in snow days. Those would be on August 19th and 20th, the district pre-conferences and the teacher in-service. So those 2 would be built in, so the first 2 snow days would be made up already. And unrelated to this calendar, but just a reminder for the 23-24 calendar, we have those same 2 days built in. So we have not had to utilize any of those. It was this time last year when we had started the fun, but So we have those two built in. I think people are pretty satisfied with that particular swap. We added the day of in-service to get us to 2, and we had added the pre-conferences during the first year of COVID and had continued it because of its success. So you can see we have parent-teacher conferences in November, still have Veterans Day off, and then a 3-day spring break in March, with another set of conferences in February. And I will stand by for questions or any other comments. Thank you to Ms. Moulton for representing the board on that committee.
I think was the only other significant change from this year was the half day leading into Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's kind of what we think might be a one-year fluke in order to get our conferences in the manner that we did in November. So we do have a 12:30 dismissal on that Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the calendar?
I move we approve the calendar.
Motion by Moulton.
Second?
Second by Iverson. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been approved. Move to item 6.5.
Yes, this is the second reading on policy EBCE-P, and that's the procedures for winter storm emergencies. I want to reiterate that a vote to approve this second reading would delete this policy, but the procedures would still exist. They would exist in our admin office as a procedure only that could be edited in a more timely manner without running it through the board process, so that as we prepare for those winter storm emergencies and if they had to be updated from year to year. So a vote to approve the second reading would actually delete these procedures from the policy manual, but it would not delete the procedures in existence.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Iverson.
Second.
Second by Moulton. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been approved. We will move to, do not have any open enrollments.
No.
Move to a 13-28-10.
Correct. No open enrollments. We have 4 13-28-10s for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the 13-28-10s.
Motion by
Second.
Lohr, second by Rossman. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been approved. We'll move into the administrative reports.
Yes, thank you. A couple of announcements, and then I'll give you just highlights from the legislative. Not too late, 7:30 tonight is our high school vocal orchestra concert here in the Civic Arena. A reminder to families that school dismisses at 12:30 on December 22nd for winter break, and then resumes again on January 2nd. We did at the November meeting approve the closure of Roosevelt effective at the end of this year. So for the 24-25, that has been communicated out per state statute. We are looking at our elementary committee meeting again with a presentation at the January board meeting to discuss a plan for the 4 remaining elementary schools. So that will be coming up in January with some more work to be done here in the next 2 weeks. As far as the legislative front, we are grateful. President Sanderson outlined the 4% that was in the governor's budget proposal. One of the things that we like when we hear that in the budget proposal is that it's already written into the budget to start with, and then the legislators usually, what has typically happened is, the governor proposes one thing, and then the legislators, we have to hope that they can get us up. After hearing reports all fall of a 2, maybe 3% increase, the 4% was very welcome and appreciated. Some things that might be coming that just are of interest to schools. One of them is a bill on school lunch, paying for school lunches. Where that will land, I've heard a couple of different versions. One of them is all students, much like we had for a couple years during COVID where all students receive free lunches. The other proposal is to make the reduced price free. So there would only be one set of qualifications. You would either qualify for free lunches or not. And the state would have to supplement that reduced price. Possibility of a bill to replace the 11th grade Smarter Balance test with the ACT. Of course, the devil's in the details a little bit there in terms of how to figure out, what to do with some of our specialty groups, maybe students with disabilities, English language learners, those sort of things, and how that could be articulated. And then also, I've heard word of a possible voucher bill that would provide public support for private school students. So we'll see where that one falls, if that materializes into a bill, but we're following that one closely. So like I said, once again, very grateful for the governor's announcement of the 4% and hope that we can keep it there as we make it through. Board representatives and district representatives will be meeting with our Watertown legislators yet here before Christmas break. So we have that meeting set up next week and looking forward to some good discussion with them.
Item 7.3, are there any board members that need to report anything to the superintendent? Okay, then I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Iverson,
Second.
second by Moulton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.